We are broadcasting.
Woohoo! Hi, Internet.
Hi, Internet. Okay. I have my script. This is week 10, show 11. For what I mean, at this point, it's like what it is. It is games this week. There are games this week. It doesn't matter what week it is. And there's that. Okay, y'all set?
Sure.
Here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2. Howdy, boys and girls, and welcome back to the Carl and Crappy Show. It is week 10 of the college football season. In 2017 is week 10 of the Carl and Crappy Show, although it's show 11, which is a confusing thing that goes back a couple weeks that I'm not going to bother to explain now. Hi, Carla.
Hi, Crappy. Hashtag math is hard.
Yeah, exactly. I'm again, to go over this, it's like journalism people, and it's math, and it's like, whatever, who cares? I would normally take a moment to perhaps gloat for just a second about last weekend, but honest to God, there are so many good games this weekend that I'm not even going to take the time. We've got like 18 top 25 matches. I'm not sure. Again, math is right. I'm not sure that's actually possible.
It feels like it.
It feels like it. And then there are some legit good non-top 25 games, and we have the first college football rankings coming out. It just came out a couple days ago. I'm exhausted already, and it's only Wednesday.
I know. It's a good thing we get an extra hour of sleep on Saturday.
Oh God, right? That's right. Yes,
that's the one really good thing. So cheers to that for being a busy college football weekend, and at least you get an extra hour of sleep. And also we have holiday drinks at Starbucks.
Woo!
So coffee, an extra hour of sleep. This would be a good weekend. I plan on doing nothing but sitting in front of my TV because you're right. There are like 17 million games happening on Saturday, and there's no break. They're at every single time slot. So
we have a beer festival that we're going to while Ohio State is playing, which makes me nervous. Although my record during these things is okay. And I'm drinking because I was in Columbus last weekend. I'm drinking a fine double IPA from a Seventh Sons Brewing.
I'm not actually drinking coffee. I promise. I drank that earlier today. It's empty, but I wanted prop for the show. I'm drinking cider. So
okay.
Yeah,
fall. That's perfect. That's absolutely
November is
perfect.
my favorite time of the year.
Okay.
It's Thanksgiving. It's the peak of college football season. Like, I love November.
Happy November.
Happy November.
With November comes the very first set of college football playoff rankings, and rather than dwell on a lot of stuff that happened last weekend, we're going to dwell on a lot of stuff that happened. That was Tuesday. That was just yesterday, right?
Yeah. Everybody missed it because of Halloween.
I missed most of it because I was handing out candy on my front porch. The final four rankings: number 1, Georgia; number 2, Alabama; number 3, Notre Dame; number 4, Clemson. Rather than a recap, Carla, what did you learn as these rankings came out for the first time?
I learned that maybe for the first time in the history of these college football playoff rankings, because this is a relatively new thing, right? Mm-hmm. This is year 4 of the playoff. That maybe for the first time in the history of doing these rankings, head-to-head matchups matter early in this first ranking. We noticed that like in the last couple of years that head-to-heads didn't really matter all that much. It was always on body of work. That was the thing we kept hearing over and over again from the committee. It's very clear in this first ranking that the committee is going to care about head-to-head matchups because what do we have? Oklahoma 5, your Buckeyes at 6, Penn State at 7,
right.
In the order, I mean, really. So and the fact they put Georgia up on, as number 1, that didn't surprise me because it's kind of that's a strength of schedule. Really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, absolutely, Bama ain't played nobody. and that's,
Bama ain't played nobody, and there's another thing in their schedule that's coming up that I'm going to rant about here in just a second. But yeah, you're exactly right.
But yeah, it's really interesting. The makeup of the committee changes every year, including this year. Robert Morris, as president, is on the committee.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
The new president, Robert Morris, is on the committee. So it's part of me wants to email him and get his thoughts, like after we get through the end of this, to see what he thinks about all this.
Give it a try.
But no, it's very interesting that when the different committee makeups, they value different things. To be perfectly honest, as long as Georgia and Alabama were 1 and 2, I didn't care what order they were in. To be honest, 3-13 right now, coin flip for the most part. I mean, there's really not a lot of separation there. So I'm okay with where things are right now. It's going to sort itself out. We see that every year. It's going to sort itself out over the next couple weeks. It'll be interesting to see how much the head-to-heads continue to weigh in as we move on forward.
I would say certainly as an Ohio State fan, I am comfortable where I am. And I think I think winning out solves a lot of problems. I would also observe that Notre Dame, and I mentioned this a week ago, and this is still on my mind, and it should still be on yours, and it should be on the minds of anyone whose teams have a Final Four aspirations, but who have one loss. Notre Dame gets the benefit of the doubt. I know, first ranking, and we're kind of throwing stuff against the wall and see what happens. But I'm not saying Notre Dame's not deserving of certainly top 10 and probably top 5. But there's Notre Dame, and they do get a look because they're Notre Dame. But as I said last week, they still have some tough games left. So that's the thing. Alabama also has tough games left. I will give them credit for that. After this weekend when they play LSU, they are at Mississippi State, and then they have the game against Auburn. Sandwiched in there is a game against Mercer.
Yep.
I had to look up Mercer. Mercer is a 1AA school in Macon, Georgia.
Yes, it is. And my friend Caitlin went there, who played my wedding. She's the organist that played my wedding. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin. You did a really nice job at Carla's wedding. Your football team has absolutely no shot at beating Alabama in the second to the last week of the regular season. And I will say this, and I will admit to being sensitive, and we've gone over this before. I will admit to being sensitive after hearing for years and years about how Ohio State does not play anybody. It is inexcusable that the Alabama Crimson Tide are playing a 1AA school the third week in November.
Well, okay, we complain about this every year.
Yes.
Because the SEC does this. It's not just Alabama. It's the SEC. They all play that stupid cupcake game at the end of November, and it's across the board. That's our annual soapboxes, right? Between the SEC cupcakes at the end of November and the Big Ten title game needing to be played outside. Those are our two soapboxes.
You're exactly right. Exactly right.
Every year. So it's not just Bama, but yes, SEC, can we get rid of this finally? Because to be honest, they need the strength of schedule this year.
At some point, yes, exactly. I mean, and this was the thing that Ohio State struggled with in a few different years. The big non-conference game, that's scheduled 10 years ahead of time, doesn't work out to be so hot because whatever happened to the other team, Alabama playing Florida State, you don't know that Florida State's quarterback's going to get injured. You don't know what the actual state of the Seminoles this year, which, as it turns out, is not especially good. Right. That's not Alabama's fault. But at some point, you might come down to the end of the season here if you're looking at Georgia and Alabama might need that boost.
Yeah.
To their strength of schedule, and then you've got the Mercer Bulldogs on the week before the Iron Bowl. Right. SEC, knock it off. Okay, Ohio State and Ohio State played a couple games against Youngstown State because of the previous coaches' connections there. But we've sworn off games against 1AA opponents. Period, and that's what you need to do too. So. I'll save the other rant for the week before the Big Ten championship game. We'll get to that in a second. I do want to let AJ get a chance. He's got good stuff going out there, including one of our 19,000 legit top 25 games this year, Arizona at Southern Cal. AJ, what you got? Everybody, have a sip. And then we go. Thank you, Dr. Kuftik. We appreciate your help. AJ is not actually a doctor.
But he plays one on our show.
He plays one on our show. And I think there was an old Twitter handle where he was Dr. Scooter at some point. This was a long time ago. I'm going to have to ask him about that, but I could. I think that's the case. We are doing things a little bit differently. We have 2 games that we thought were worth the full treatment. And they're going to be kind of speedy treatments because we got a ground to cover. And then we're going to go kind of sort of back and forth with some of the other games that we thought we just can't really skip over. So we're going to cover 6 games. 6?
Yes. Yes.
6. Good. I'm score 1 for the journalism majors. And the first 2 we're gonna do as our normal treatment. I should point out from this point forward, in the college football season, when I mention rankings, I'm going to be mentioning the college football playoff rankings rather than the Associated Press rankings that we've been using to this point. I will probably offer one more reminder of that. But from here on, that's what we're going to be looking at because, let's be honest, that's what matters at this stage. So with that in mind, we get to Bedlam, number 5 Oklahoma at number 11 Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, the lower ranked team, is favored by 2.5 points. Carla, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I mention this every year when we get a line that's like that at the 2.5 points, and the home team is favored by 2.5 points. Really, the line for the home team is always 3.
Yeah.
So a 2.5 line for Oklahoma State, right, means that actually they think it's a coin flip, maybe leaning Oklahoma.
But I don't know. What's going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah. No, but really, this is a fantastic game. The first thing I wrote down in my notes was that the big question in all of this was what's happened to Oklahoma's defense, right? Because we've seen that the last couple of weeks. But then I thought about it for a second. And I'm like, wait a second. It's Oklahoma State. Why are we thinking about defense? Because it's not going to matter.
I'm so glad you brought that up, and you'll see why in a minute.
Yeah, it's not going to matter in this game. I mean, really. Okay, so Oklahoma's averaging, 586 yards per game, 43 points per game. Oklahoma State, 569 yards per game, 44 points per game. So, I mean, pretty evenly offensive juggernauts. Baker Mayfield's thrown for 23 touchdowns. Mason Rudolph's thrown for 22. This is going to be offense all the time. And it's going to be, Bedlam's always a fun atmosphere to begin with. The only thing that really is kind of a differentiator here, Oklahoma's a little bit more balanced offensively. They do have a bit more of a run game than Oklahoma State does. Mm-hmm. So that helps, but it's really, can the Oklahoma defense stop or slow down the Oklahoma State offense enough to be able to outscore them? I mean, this really is going to be in Oklahoma. This is going to be a shootout in Oklahoma. I love the fact that the over-under in this game is 76.
I didn't even look. That's awesome.
Yeah, the over-under is 76. Take the over. I honestly, I don't know who to pick in this game. I think it's a really interesting game because in a 6 sort of way, I feel like your Buckeyes need to root for Oklahoma to win this because of strength of schedule with the loss. But yet they're ranked ahead. So it's kind of a weird thing. But when I was looking at that, I'm like, does Ohio State want Oklahoma to win or lose this game? I don't know, because if they win this game, that's going to keep them, firmly above here. Yeah. Where it might get interesting is maybe if Oklahoma wins this game, if Iowa State wins out, and we'll talk about them in a minute, they control their destiny because they beat Oklahoma. So Oklahoma could win this game and still not play for a Big 12 title, which is crazy. But welcome to the Big 12 this year. So Oklahoma State playing at home, that's a tough ask for the Sooners that have been really kind of fickle on defense. I think Oklahoma State wins this, but I'm really on the fence. I really don't. Neither team stands out as being able to dominate the other. It's going to be a really close game. Last team that has the ball might win it. But yeah, watch this one if you can. I know there's a lot of games happening. Keep this one handy on your thumb. On the trigger. I'm guessing Gus will be on the call for this one. I hope to God Gus is on the call for this one because it's going to be a zoo. So yeah, Bedlam. Saturday afternoon. Watch it.
I think that would be a Gus game because Ohio State plays at 3:30, but they're back on the mothership this week. So I think that's probably what would happen there. Not that this game needs any more excitement.
Right.
I am so happy you mentioned the defenses because that was a thing. I'm like, I wonder about scoring defense in this game. And you will tell me, Mike, how can that possibly matter in this situation? And I'm going to say, okay, it's probably not, but I knew Carl was going to talk about the offenses. So, scoring defenses, Oklahoma is 61st in the country. Oklahoma State is 53rd.
Okay.
And maybe that's just enough. Plus the fact that the Cowboys are at home.
Mm-hmm.
I am... if I'm being honest, I will admit to being as conflicted as you are admitted to be about this game, but I'm going with Cowboys. As far as what it means for my team, I don't. It's hard to say. Do you want to eliminate a team that's ahead of you? Do you want strength of schedule to help work in your benefit? I don't have a clue. I don't know how that's going to work, but I am picking Oklahoma State in this game. Next up, we have number 19 LSU at number 2 Alabama. Alabama is favored by 3 touchdowns. Carla, what do you think?
This is an LSU team that we wrote off early in the season, right? We talked about that. They
completely
lost. They got dominated by Mississippi State, which put me on the Mississippi State bandwagon. That was ill-fated.
We both had that problem. Yes.
Just yeah, and then they lost, and then LSU lost to Troy, and everyone went Troy. The Fun Belt wins. So head scratchers. But then LSU did something that not a lot of teams are able to do, and that is they completely turned around after that loss to Troy. I mean, people were calling for. We had that conversation of who gets fired first, Butch Jones or Ed Orgeron, and come to find out it was Jim McElwain. I mean, talk about how crazy the SEC is this year.
How funny is it the Miami guy is now coaching Florida?
Yes, Randy Shannon is now filling in as the coach at Florida.
I know it's a supposedly temporary thing, but that's just delicious irony.
Well, and it is for me because we're trying to get tickets to go to Florida State, and the better that those teams keep losing, the cheaper tickets get. So
nice. Sure. Yes.
So we're good with this.
Okay.
But no, back to the game at hand. LSU turned things around. They beat Florida in the Swamp, which was probably the beginning of the end for the Jim McElwain era, 17-16. They rallied from 20 points down to beat a good Auburn team, which was one of those that caught everybody's attention. And they had a solid win a couple weeks ago over Ole Miss. What I like about this game is the fact that LSU is entering after a bye. However, so is Alabama, which kind of negates that whole process. The thing is what we just talked about. We don't really know for sure how good Alabama is. We've seen them dominate teams, but lesser competition this year because the SEC West is down. This is going to be the first true test that we've seen for Alabama since the Florida State game, which may have been the best Florida State was all year. At this point, but it's tough to gauge because of how far Florida State fell after losing Francois. We don't really know for sure. We think Alabama is really, really good because of the way that they've dominated their competition this year. We'll find out for sure on Saturday. I think 21.5. I don't see that because that's just not the way SEC games go. But this isn't the LSU defense. Excuse me. This isn't the LSU defense we're used to. They've been allowing over 300 yards per game and 20 points per game. That's not the typical LSU stout defense that we're used to seeing. Right. So I think Alabama's going to put up some points. I think 21.5 is way too much. But I think Alabama will get this win. And like we just talked about, they have to win out. To secure, because then we get into a Georgia-Bama SEC title game. They can't afford. I don't think Bama can afford a loss with as good as Georgia is playing. I think the committee would hesitate to put 2 SEC teams in, especially if Alabama doesn't have a signature win and they lose a game against this one of these teams upcoming. Maybe Auburn, they might think about that, but I don't know. This is a must-win for Bama. And Nick Saban, they're going to find a way to get the win. I think it's going to be closer than 21 points.
Yeah. Number one, Nick is saying that they're not using this as motivation, as the CFP ranking as motivation this weekend. And as we've discussed before, coaches, we know when you're lying. Okay, we know this.
Yes.
I wonder. I do wonder about the two teams from a conference in the Final Four thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like when it happens, it probably would be an SEC situation, but I think you make a great point. If Alabama loses to Georgia in an SEC title game, and you have hypothetically, you've got a Clemson team that has won a conference title. You've got God only knows from the Big 12. Say Ohio State wins the Big Ten championship. You've got these, and let's not discount Notre Dame with a one loss in there as well.
And here's the interesting situation that we're talking about here. If Bama loses to Georgia, who is Notre Dame's one loss to? Georgia.
Georgia.
So you'd have two one-loss teams with the loss to the same team, which then brings it down to strength of schedule. And you could make a solid argument that Notre Dame's strength of schedule is better than Alabama's. Because they in theory would have wins over USC, NC State, Michigan, and potentially Miami and Stanford.
Yep. We have veered off
Again,
course here a little bit, but that's interesting to think about as far as Alabama and LSU goes. I want to see this be a game. I really do. And the turnaround that Ed Orgeron has done in Baton Rouge has been so impressive because a loss at home to Troy, that's a program-changing defeat, and he has managed to overcome that, and he deserves all the credit in the world for it. If this was in Tiger Stadium, this was in Death Valley, I would take a really hard look at LSU in this game, and as a college football fan, you'd love to see anyone beat the evil empire. I see the line. The line I think is ridiculous. But I think Alabama wins this because it is at home, and because just the immediate thing. Not that anyone would use this as motivation, but the immediate thing about the number 2 rankings. That's going to be a thing for them. So we have like 18 more games to go through. We have 4 specifically more games to go through. We're going to do these quickly. Sort of a speed run thing, but there were too many games that we didn't want to gloss over. Carla, we're going to start with you. Number 7, Penn State at number 24, Michigan State. Penn State is favored by 8.5. Go.
So this is the battle for the ugliest trophy in college football, the Land Grant Trophy.
That's not what James Franklin says. He says it's the most beautiful trophy in college football.
Have you seen it?
I have.
It looks like it was created at a garage sale. Right? I mean, we talk about this every year. The Land Grant Trophy looks like it was random stuff put together on a piece of wood, and here, trophy. But this series could not be more evenly settled. In fact, it's tied 15-15-1. A Penn State team reeling after last week, played well in the first half, got dominated in the second half, both on the line and in the secondary. Have to fix the secondary problems this week going against Brian Lewerke, who threw for a school record 445 last week against Northwestern. Catch being here, there's 2 things. First of all, Michigan State lost in triple overtime. Bad loss for Sparty. They have to be deflated heading into this. Will that serve as motivation?
They had to come back to get to overtime in that game.
Yeah. So you've got to wonder where their mental state is, whether they will come out trying to avenge that loss. Or whether they're going to feel deflated. We really don't know, other than the fact that they've got Mark D'Antonio on their sideline. So you have to think they're going to at least come out fired up at the beginning. Penn State called a team meeting this week, which tells you everything you need to know about where Penn State's heads are. I think they're going to come out ready to avenge that loss. The secondary has to be ready. That's the only way Penn State wins this game. They obviously proved that they couldn't do it last week. They have to do it this week. They can't lose this game. I think this is a must-win for Penn State. They find a way to get the win.
Okay, I agree. I think the players-only meeting is a good sign. They're taking it seriously. I also like what the players said coming out of the meeting. This is something that my newspaper covered pretty thoroughly. Their heads are in the right place. This is beating Michigan State is a pain in the butt, especially in East Lansing. It is the best example of Tressa ball going these days. So 8.5 could be about right. That might be like 10-2. I'm not sure, but I see Penn State winning this one. I take the next one. Number 4 Clemson at number 20 NC State. Clemson is favored by 7. Carla, do you remember who Kyle Bambard is?
I do not.
You do not. Kyle Bambard. Clemson should have lost 2 regular season games last year. And Kyle Bambard was the NC State kicker who missed the potential game-winning field goal against Clemson. And I am just this total gut pick because this is in Raleigh. I am picking NC State to win this with Kyle Bambard kicking the game-winning field goal to put the Wolfpack over the top.
That would be sweet redemption, wouldn't it?
I would love it.
I've got 2 things in this game also. First thing is the NC State defense up to the task of stopping this Clemson offense? That's a big question in this one. If they can, then we've got ourselves a game. The other motivation factor here: Clemson cannot lose with as tight as this top 13 teams is. Next week they play Florida State. They travel to South Carolina at the end of the month at Thanksgiving. Clemson absolutely cannot lose this game and still have a shot at the playoff because of how bad their loss is to Syracuse. So I think Clemson's going to be really motivated, but this wouldn't be a Clemsoning, but at the same time, it would not stun me for the Wolfpack to win this game. I'm going to lean Clemson, but yeah, this is another one of those, is the coin flip.
Okay. Your second game is up next. Number 15, Iowa State. Everyone's darlings. They are playing at West Virginia, and West Virginia is favored by the dreaded 2.5.
Right. And this is a game that, even though West Virginia is not ranked, Iowa State has to be ready for this game. They've been playing over their heads for the last couple of weeks. And suddenly they control their own destiny in the Big 12. Which is crazy. They're the little Big 12 team that could at this point. Everybody's behind them.
Yeah.
It's a fun spot to be. Kansas State was in this role a couple of years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And we all got on the Kansas State bandwagon. West Virginia's losses are all to ranked opponents. They've lost to Virginia Tech, TCU, and Oklahoma State, and they were in all of those games. They have not been dominated by any of their opponents. They've also been averaging 42.8 points per game. Going to be a tough test for this Iowa State defense going on the road in Morgantown, where regardless of time of day, the atmosphere in Morgantown is always bonkers, right?
It just doesn't matter.
The interesting thing here, though, is that, exactly. West Virginia's defense, not as stout as we're used to. Same thing with LSU. They've given up. They got pushed around last week by Oklahoma State, and they've really just been kind of struggling the last couple of weeks. Iowa State also needs to beware of Clemsoning. Yes. Because they play Oklahoma State next week, so they cannot overlook this game to get ready to play the Cowboys, who knows where they will be based on how Bedlam goes. Right. Iowa State should win this game, but my gut says West Virginia blows up the Big 12 in this one. It's just a gut feeling at this point. I like Iowa State. I want them to keep winning. I love this storyline. I love Kyle Kemp never starting and then walking on at Iowa State and suddenly rallying this team with Matt Campbell at head coach. Gut says West Virginia is ready for a big win to kind of mess everything up, and this could be it.
I think West Virginia is what it is, and certainly playing in Morgantown, the Mountaineer fans will be ready for this, prime for it. I just wonder, it is a hard thing for a team that has been down so long to suddenly make this turnaround.
Yeah.
And I have to wonder, at some point, these guys are looking at their schedule, and I know they're looking at Oklahoma State next weekend, and maybe they're not paying so much attention to the trip to West Virginia, and that would be an error. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about this, but if they don't know how to win, and they don't know how to win a tough game like this, this is the weekend. That game at Morgantown is one where they could struggle. So my gut says the same thing as yours. My gut says West Virginia wins this one. And then the final game we have going this week, number 6, Ohio State at Iowa. Ohio State's favored by 18. I included this on the schedule because duh. And also because of the trouble that Penn State had in Iowa City earlier this season. That's not it's not a knock on Penn State, and I mentioned this when we were talking about that game. That ain't an easy place to play. I'm actually kind of relieved that this isn't a night game, although it's sort of like Morgantown. I'm not sure it matters all that much. As I look at this, especially given the win last week. And what happened with that, and what had to happen to get the win in that situation. And there's a game coming up against Michigan State at home. There's a revenge factor there from the 2015 season, that rain game where Michigan State kicked the game-winning field goal as time expired. There is potential. There is potential for a letdown. And I'm gonna hope, and to be honest, I feel fairly comfortable with the notion that that's not coming this week. I would actually look at the Illinois game right before Michigan is a potential problem as far as that goes for Ohio State. In this situation, I see a tough game. I would feel awfully lucky and awfully fortunate to get out of Iowa City with an 18-point win, but I don't see the letdown coming this time around. So I'm gonna go with my Buckeyes. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. This isn't quite the Iowa team that we're used to. I mean, yes, Penn State had to fight real hard to get that win earlier this year, but they're just not quite as the force to be reckoned with in the West this year. That role has kind of fallen to Wisconsin. They've caused some headaches, but no, I think your Buckeyes have their eye on the prize at this point, and I think they know that they have to go in and win this game. So I don't like that line either because it's Iowa City. But 2 touchdowns, I think that's reasonable. I just don't see 18. But 13, 14, somewhere in there. They're not going to win by 3 touchdowns.
Two touchdowns would be fine. I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine with that. What?
Oh, go ahead.
Go.
I was just going to say, here's the craziest thing about this week. The game that we didn't even talk about, Miami, Virginia Tech, 2 top 25 teams in the ACC. Like,
you couldn't stand not to bring that up, could you? And I honestly, I have no idea. I have no idea what's happening with that one. I really don't.
I really don't either. And the fact that Miami tends to win at the last minute, so maybe Virginia Tech. I don't know,
sure.
But yeah, that's how crazy this week is.
Go Hokies. I'm good with that.
Sure. I have no logic whatsoever on any of that, but it's just
the overarching point here. The overarching point here, boys and girls, is basically duct tape yourself to the couch on Saturday, and just watch everything you can until your eyeballs bleed, because there is that much good college football coming this weekend. Carla, thank you once again.
Yep, thanks as always. That was fun.
Guys, I hope you have as much fun as we are going to have on Saturday. Thank you for watching, and we will see you back here next week. It seriously is going to be nuts.
Yeah,
and I'm going to be Beers at the Bird from I think it's from 3 until 6 or 3 until I think it's 3 until 6.
So you're going to miss the afternoon slate,
including my game. I was counting on counting on my game being a night game when I bought those tickets a couple weeks ago. But
oops.
we've done that before. And certainly, I put on a jersey and I keep my phone handy and charged, and I can follow what's going on. But
you're gonna be fine on Saturday.
I think so.
I'm still mourning.
Man.
The most depressing part of that game was watching the offensive line get dismantled in the fourth quarter.
Because they turned it up. There's no question. Play calling on the part of Penn State helped. It felt like they were being really, really careful until they needed to make up ground. But yeah, and then
that second quarter lull is a thing. I don't know if you scrolled back through my Twitter, but like during that game,
you're right.
Like that's been characteristic of them all, even in the Michigan game. I talked about that, right? That like they came out fast and then they just lay an egg in the second quarter and then tried to bank on playing well in the second half, and it bit them in the ass this week. I mean, they didn't keep their pedal to the metal. Had they done that and got one more score before halftime, I think the game would have been different.
That would have made a huge difference. Yes. It would have made a huge difference in how the stadium felt. Certainly. I don't know. I mean, I was impressed with my team. They just even the thing with the late field goal, the one halfway through the fourth quarter. It's like, and I've been in that building in those situations where it really just felt like, we're done. And it did not feel like that. So it's a good one.
Yeah, it was a bummer.
That was an all-timer. I'm still tired. My voice is back. That's a good thing.
That's good. No, I've been. They talked to my husband about that. I was just like out of it the rest of the night because it was deflating to watch. To watch the line not be able to protect McSorley at all. It was just like, for crying out loud.